I want to tell you a story this morning about the time that my mother and her family bought their first Bible. My mother grew up in a home until she was 10 years of age where there was no Bible. And when she was 10, the family decided it was time to buy a Bible and bring into their home. It was a great occasion, and they had talked about it for many weeks. And finally, the day had arrived that they were to purchase and bring home the Bible. They drove to town that day in their wagon and their team of mules. They hitched them on the east side of town, tied them to the wagon, and gave them the hay and the feed they'd brought along. And then they made their way across Black River and over into some of the stores that carried Bibles. They looked at a good many until finally they decided on one. It was one that met all of the family requirements. It had large print because they thought that it should be easily read. It had a thumb index so that you could just put your thumb there and turn to that book. It had some maps in the back. It had a leather binding. It had a concordance that they knew absolutely nothing about, but it sounded good, and the salesman said they needed that. And so they purchased it. They paid for it and did their other shopping, started back across town to where their team was tied, and on the way they happened to meet a minister that lived in their community. And so they stopped to pass the time of day, and of course were very excited about their new purchase. And finally Mother reached down and pulled out the box that contained the Bible and said, "You know, we've just bought a new Bible, and I want you to look at it." Well, you know, every minister is happy for people to have a Bible. And so he took the Bible from that little girl of 10, and he looked at it and he commented on what a great book this book really is, and how they had chose a good one that had a leather binding and the thumb index, and he went through all of the things that the salesperson had said they should have. Now, they knew absolutely nothing about this book, and they thought that this would be a good time to find out where a few things were located. So they said to the minister, after he had gotten through with his little speech on what a great book it was and how happy he was that it was in their home, they said, "You know, perhaps you could show us some things about this book. Can you tell us where the Ten Commandments are found? Can you show us where they are?" And of course the minister very gracefully took the Bible, and he went from front to back like this, and then from back to front like this. My mother said it seemed to her like it was an hour as he searched and searched, and he couldn't find it. He obviously was a bit embarrassed and said, "You know, today people are getting further and further away from the Word of God and His Ten Commandments. And in many of the new Bibles that are being printed today, it must be that they're leaving the Ten Commandments out. People are getting so far away from them that they don't even want to include it in the Bible. And my guess would be that they have eliminated them from the new Bible if you want. You'd better take it back and get your money and find an old Bible that has all the gospel in it." Well, they were a bit discouraged and downhearted, but they turned around. They started back to the store. On their way back across town, they went near the public. "No, we might just ought to stop in and ask for the library. Maybe that person could help us." The minister didn't really seem to know where they were located. He looked in the New Testament and the Old Testament. They knew that the Bible was divided. He looked in the front and the back and all through. Maybe this Bible does have everything there. So after a little family council, they made their way to the library. As they walked in, you know how libraries are. Everybody very studious and very quiet. They went to the individual at the desk and very sheepishly said, "You know, we have just purchased this Bible. And we just talked to a minister friend of ours, and he said that Bibles today may not be printing everything that they used to, the Ten Commandments in it." And the librarian was almost as frustrated as the minister, but he remembered about the concordance, and he knew how to use it. And so with the help of the concordance, he found the Ten Commandments. They asked him about the Lord's Prayer, and with the help of the concordance again, he found the Lord's Prayer. They asked about another text or two that they had heard in their years of living, and by remembering a few words of the text, the librarian could find that text in the concordance, and they finally were under the conclusion that their new Bible contained all the gospel. And so they went home with it. You know, boys and girls, I believe this morning that we as Christian people should know where to find things in the Bible. I believe some of the key texts that we learn in our Sabbath school lessons and our Bible lessons at school are very, very valuable to us, and that we should understand and know of this book. I want to tell the boys and girls a story this morning. I suppose my favorite area of stories is the area